All right. Well, Gail, I am so excited to have you on the show today. I was just reviewing just your background and resume, and it's so extensive and impressive. Um, just like you have, you've, you have, I mean, it's just starting off. Career went from receptionist to senior director. Talk about hustling. And then you have been a speaker for the list goes on. I mean, it's government agencies, religious groups, nonprofits, youth organizations, university. I mean, just on and on. And then you have this really rich experience with, working with the Youth Investment Club and then Money Matters through financial literacy. And I'm so excited to dive into that. I mean, not only for the work and the knowledge that you have within your day to day, but then you've been able to really cultivate a unique voice, for youth and for families around financial literacy. So, I'd love to just start there and just let's maybe start with like a little bit of your background and your story, and then we can get a little bit more into the financial literacy side and how you've really been able to create a voice and show your passion through that. But I'll turn it over to you. Let's hear a little bit more about your background.
First of
So,
all, thank
yeah.
you for this opportunity, and thank you for just being so awesome and just letting me tell my story and letting others tell their story. We need people like you in the financial service industry who do podcasts and tell our story and to make it, because everybody looks at, oh, the financial industry, they're just stuffy and this and that. No, you give a voice for everyone. So I thank you from my heart to your heart that we are doing this. So anyway, I started out, and I don't know if you want me to bring that up, but how I started was just, I ended up, I was adopted in Detroit and all this stuff, foster care, growing up and got adopted by an older family. And they never knew anything about the financial industry. They just said, Gail, have a joint account with Jesus at the credit union that only you and Jesus know about. And that was it. And I was like, okay, that's all I knew. It was just to have an account at the credit union. And then I went away to college. And I ended up, because grew up in a strict household and all of this, but I ended up, I had a child in college, my second year of college. So I was broke, of course, like most people. And then I ended up having to send my resume out everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, I sent my resume out and a brokerage firm called me. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is divine order. I'm broke, brokerage firm. Had no clue about the stock market at all. Let me tell you, Lauren. Not at all. So I just didn't even know what a brokerage firm did. So anyway, I became a receptionist. And I would just, as you can already tell, love to talk to people and meet people. But then I was a receptionist and everybody was coming in the front door. Nobody looked like me. And what I mean by look like me, the gender was all males.
Yeah.
And this was back in the 80s. All males, and nobody was African American. So I was like, oh, wait a minute. And it was hardly anyway. So one time this woman came in and we of course wanted to say, but she was a woman who was just so nice to me. Yeah. And she had just got divorced and I got divorced also. And I was like, wait a minute, you got divorced? I'm thinking, okay. And I said, well, why are you here? I got divorced also. She said, I'm coming to invest my money for my divorce settlement. And only thing I got from divorce settlement is, matter of fact, overdraft protection was my line of credit. So I got nothing from I had no settlement at all, just goodbye. So anyway, so she says, I have $1 million. I'm thinking, you got $1 million? Like, well, basically, who did you marry? But anyway, that's a whole other story. So I said, wait. I said, so what are you going to do with this money? I need to talk to you. I need to know, what are you going to do? She had small children. I said, how are you going to make it? What are you going to do? She said, I don't want to work. I want to raise my children and I'm going to live off of the dividends. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to learn everything that's going on. So I always say success leaves clues. So I looked at what she was doing and living off the dividends. So that's why I became secretary. And I said, can I get promoted to a secretary, please? And they allowed me to do that. And then I started going to people's accounts like, okay, dividends, they're doing this, they're investing. I'm like, I have to teach people this is how life is supposed to be. We're supposed to work for our money. Money is just a tool, and then we make it work for us. So I say, oh, let me figure out how to do this and how I'm going to teach people. Because the only way I'm going to do it is get a license. So I asked them, could I get licensed? And they were like, yo, no, you cannot get licensed. Actually, what was told to me, this was back in the 80s, you're African American or you're Black and you're a single mom. The answer is no, you cannot become an investment advisor. Well, I worked for some rookies. That's what they called them back in the day. And I worked for some other established investment advisors. So I was a secretary for them or a sales assistant. So I says, well, one of them left their books on the table one day. Lauren, let me tell you what I did. There was a copy machine, picked up my son from daycare, came back to the office, Xerox the Series 7, the study guide, studied every morning.
Oh,
And it was a sales assistant who sat next to me because nobody would actually allow me to do it. So the sales assistant, this is why women stick together. Her and her husband paid for me to take the test. So anyway, I ended up getting sponsored. My job said they'll never pay for me, never send me to training. Anyway, so fast forward, I took the test, passed the test, and then they took bets I'll never pass it. But I became a licensed secretary. But I started putting on seminars when I was a licensed secretary after hours. And I called a guy named John Rogers from Ariel Capital, and everybody knows who he is. Him and Melody Hobson, called them to Detroit and say, hey, come put on a seminar with me. And Melody was an intern at the time. So fast forward, I ended up opening up over 100 accounts that night of all, like, just, people investing and all stuff. So anyway, so I ended up coming in and say, hey, I got 100 accounts. I said, okay, we don't want these little accounts. And I'm thinking, I should just start crying. And they said, you know what? You can try to be a broker. We're going to give you 90 days. If you don't, make it as an investment advisor and hit these numbers. We want you to slide back over to another chair with wheels on it and just go back to being a secretary. Well, anyway, I just slid over and just started teaching people. And that's why I do what I do, Lauren. And that's when I became an investment advisor. So I would never change anything, any obstacle or any way in my path. But what I have changed, I want to change for other people. And that's why I do what I do, Lauren. I send the elevator back down to the next generation. I don't want anyone to say no and deny people the opportunity that I was denied. Even though I still made it in the industry, it was a different track that I was on. But I want people to actually have the training, be invited in to become an investment advisor and to teach people. So if I have a seat at the table, so since then, turning 60 this year, I, look back and I said, wow, I have 60 women that I have mentored that are now in the industry, investment industry, whether they're women and several African Americans, over 20, that are in the investment industry, that I want to make sure that they are in the industry. And the thing is, send the elevator back down, and then they rise higher than me, which means they're doing better than I am in the industry. That is the reason why I'm here. And that is what I love. And that is what brings me joy, is that once a seed was planted, I learned we have to reach back and we have to teach others. We have to let them have a seat at the table with us. And that's why I love what I do. And that's why now I start with teaching children and our youth.
Oh my gosh,
So
incredible.
that's what I do, Lauren. And that's my backstory. That's my background story.
I mean, pave your way to where you are, but then have been able to, like you said, you're bringing up the next generation. I'd love to hear more about that. So is that mostly through the Money Matters program or for the youth initiatives that you're involved with? Tell me more about what that consulting looks like and really like that mentorship looks like. So
yeah, one day I was reading the Wall Street Journal, and this was in 1996, reading the Wall Street Journal, because I always read about successful people. I always say success leaves clues, and we have to case the situation out, which means copy and steal everything. That's what they're casing me. So I ended up watching how somebody did a rich kids camp. But in this rich kids camp, you had to have so many millions in assets, which mostly the African American community, they did not have at that time, back in the 80s and 90s. And so I said, wait a minute, I got to figure this out. How am I going to do in Detroit? So I did this $50. They had to have somebody in assets and $10,000 to send your kid there. And then your child had to have $10,000 to invest. Well, I said, $50, I'm going to do it here in Detroit, and I'm going to make this work. So of course I put my own money, and I haven't had a vacation since 1996. I take off a week every year, and I take a few hundred youth. I call them young investors. I divide them up like stocks: small cap, mid cap, and large cap. Small cap is elementary school, mid cap is middle school, high school is large cap. And they graduate each year. So as they get older in different schools. So I ended up having them learn everything from, how to invest, But the first thing I teach them is don't ever love anything that can't love you back. Money cannot love you back. But we teach them how to make money work for them. And I actually give them a pillowcase. And they actually write on the pillowcase, how will their money how is it going to work for them while they're sleeping? So you have to actually do their vision board on a pillowcase. Or I have this one plate that they have to write on. How are they going to serve the world and make money also? So we have all these analogies so it's mostly an experience. So what I do is give our young people the experience of going to meet Warren Buffett, going to the Berkshire shareholders meeting, going to back in the day, the Sara Lee shareholders meeting. So I take them actually to learn to vote. Voting is so important also. So they learn if you own stock, you can vote. So let's figure out. So I have young people who own Berkshire, who own all these companies, that they actually go to the shareholders meetings. And then they have to set up their own personal board of directors. They have to have, whether it's somebody who mentors them, an accountant, a banker, a credit union, whatever you want to call it. But then also, but this year, in the last few years, because of COVID, I incorporated mental health into everything. So and I know, I'm not talking about stocks individually, but my kids will take stocks with DoorDash versus Uber Eats, and then they will versus Uber, and they ended up because they eat out all the time. I can't believe these kids. So they do tug of war the very first day. So large cap versus mid cap, or mid cap versus whatever. So they actually learn the strategy of the market and the strategy of when to hold on, when to let go. Do your research. Talk about your strategy. How are you going to hold on, or how are you going to let go and not get burnt? But also when I incorporated mental health, it comes to the same thing with anxiety, with depression, with hate, with forgiveness. You got to know when to hold on and let go. So I actually have change agents, because everybody needs a change agent on their board. And that's actually to talk about mental health. So I have a lot of psychologists come out to talk about, because a lot of reasons we don't invest is because of self-esteem, not knowing different things. And with my camp too, a lot of the young people, some come from affluent families, and some come from foster care, or some come from inner city Detroit, who've never, even went outside the city limits. So I end up taking everybody and putting them together. And then they all learn how to spell the word opportunity. And the word opportunity is the word unity. All of these young people come together and start their own business, set up their own personal board of directors. And we don't have enough time to talk about the success stories about them starting their own business. And now one young man, you're talking about 60 something million dollars later, has his own staff in LA. One of my first money camps, just the businesses that they have started. Even now, we have a lot of young people who have, clothing lines and everything, or they're in the financial service industry, and they have their own venture capital funds now. They're doing everything. I'm like, look at these kids having their own hedge fund, and they actually start their own portfolio in the money camp. And just to see, it's just about, I said, our youth are like Kodak film. They need exposure and development. We have to expose them to the world of finance. That's the main thing. And then we have to not only expose them, we can't just turn on the TV and expose them. We have to develop them with experience. And Lauren, the experience is everything with our young people. Hands-on experience is everything. But the main thing that we teach them too is gratitude. Once you learn something, always write people letters. Like I do gratitude notes. I do 10 a day, which I will write John Rogers or Melody Hobson, Warren Buffett, or whoever, or, the CEO of Elevest, Sally, all of them. I write them a letter and just say, I'm proud of you. I don't ask them for anything. I just want people to know I'm proud of them. So the power of the pen is still so important. So they end each day writing a gratitude note to someone. So we teach them everything of how to sit at the table, how to hold the chair for a lady, the men, and what fork to use, what knife to use, because we have a board meeting the last day. So it's from A to Z, whether it's fencing lessons on how to stand up straight, or it's how to sit down and how to eat pizza with a knife and a fork, and what knife to use, what fork to use, what glass to use. So we teach them everything, and how to start a business, and how to budget is so important too. So I know I'm talking a lot, Lauren, but
no, I'm loving
I know
this.
you probably have another question. my money camp, and it's the most, it's probably one of my passion. And what I say, and Lauren, for a living, as you already know, I work in the investment industry, but for life, I invest in others. And that brings me the biggest dividends and the biggest joy. I may not have the big portfolios like probably a lot of people listening to this podcast, but my portfolio of youth, oh, it's tremendous. And their dividends, as they will live on forever. Like that is what I want, basically, as my building wealth legacy.
Amazing. And how have you, because I feel like there's a lot of people that, they're in this space and they want to be able to say, like, being able to give back and doing the kinds of things that you're doing, but you found a space for it and you made time for it. And how have you gone about doing that while managing, climbing the ladders, with your day to day as well? What was it? Is it, you've been doing this at night, on the weekends? Like, how have you been so successful in both realms, both from a passion side, plus, having a family and all these other aspects of life? So,
Well, Lauren, I will say, and I know, it's difficult having a family, trying to balance it. When my kids were younger and my sons, every one of them had to go through the money camp. Every single one of them had to work the money camp. And they're still, to this day, they'll take their vacation and come back and help me, along with about 50 others. They will take their vacation time. So I never take a day off, is one thing. I basically work like 7 days a week. My clients become my friends. They're my friends and my family. And they actually come and help me teach the kids, whether they're business owners or whatever. They come. So I use it as it's all-inclusive, holistic approach to my strategy of balancing life, where I include everybody. Like, oh, hey, you like kids, you want to give back, come on and help me with this passion, this mission, and everybody. And then even a lot of my clients, they want to send their kids to the camp. Like, I need to send my kids there. So everybody gets involved. So it's kind of like all around, a wraparound of coming to it, but balancing it. But let me tell you what, balancing it is just, I have to start every single day. I literally start every single day on my knees, because it is a strategy where I just start, whether I want to do the right thing for my clients and the time for them. And then I have to write down, matter of fact, you probably see this whiteboard behind me. I write it down. Okay, I gotta call this person. I gotta do this, gotta do this. And I do that every single morning. And then I try to balance it. I take an hour out of each day. Okay, let me follow up on Money Camp. This is what I'll give to Money Camp, give the rest to that. And then, but leading up to it, I'll take a few days off and try to get it all organized. So I now have my own board of directors that I made up to say, hey, I need help with this. I need help. And I think everybody, even our clients, I tell my clients to have their own personal board of directors that we can call on people, because you need that life coach. You need that mental health coach. You need that physical coach. That somebody helps you to stay healthy. And then I also have a meeting with my sons. Like, okay, I call them my sunshines on Sundays. And I say, hey, okay, what can you do this year? How can you help me with the money camp? What can you do? And I actually make it becomes a family affair. What I mean by family affair, I have so many young people that I call my sons and daughters, but they are related I love. And they all come over on Sundays too. And we work together. I love cooking. So I cook for everyone. And then I end up, okay, let's get this together. So, but it is difficult to balance sometimes, but I do my best to balance, and I keep a calendar and I just try to do what I can, for everyone. And that's when it comes down to speaking and everything else too, Lauren. It's difficult. It can be.
It sounds like it truly takes a village, it sounds like you've been able to cultivate your community, both at work, personal, et cetera, to be able to pull everyone together. And then over time, how have you really been able to amplify, the voice and the value here? It's like identifying the youth and creating those opportunities so people are aware of this program, this opportunity. What have you done to be able to plant those seeds and pull that together?
So what I've done, absolutely right. I plant seeds in different neighborhoods in Detroit with the youth. We actually go to different neighborhoods that actually need it. This is how we cultivate families to really bring change. We plant a financial garden and we leave kindness rocks all throughout the year.
Oh, wow.
So this is what I do. So when yes. So we planted gardens at homeless shelters everywhere. It's just so amazing. Where I love to plant a financial garden and have the youth go over and water. Like, in order to have anything, you have to pour into it.
Hmm.
So I do have a village that actually plants a garden, that actually gives back and helps me. And so that's the number one thing that we all do together. But in the way I find my children, I will go and speak at different high schools in the city of Detroit or outside of the city of Detroit. I will also go to foster care homes. I also sleep outside with the homeless once a year, and I find a lot of homeless youth, and they need this. And my one major success story I found when she was 16. She was sleeping in a car, and a matter of fact, I was just reading this right now. Her name is Courtney, and she
Yeah.
was sleeping in a car. She sent this, my godmom, and I call her my daughter, but I followed her all the way through college. And Courtney is, so she was sleeping in a car, but I said, hey, I got you. Like, I'm going to make sure. I work with the organization called National Association of Securities Professionals. We give them scholarships every year. I said, I'll make sure you get a scholarship every year. And I work with them and share the scholarship fund and all of that. So I said, hey, we want to make sure our youth can go to college, because sometimes they just need the opportunity. I want to make sure that they're not poor. Poor means passed over opportunity repeatedly. She was in the system, foster care. She was passed over. Once we got her the resources she needed, now Harvard, she went to Harvard, she went to Eastern Michigan. She has
Awesome.
her own organization called the Phoenix Center. She gives back. She's a Rockefeller. Um, she gets money from the Rockefeller Foundation. I mean, name it. She's killing it. So
I get
that's, I mean,
goosebumps.
Courtney is just doing amazing.
Yeah.
I know. I'm so proud of her. So I will find, I don't care whether they're home. And the thing is, when I was born, this is why I do this, and I'll tell you this, Lauren. When I was born and I was left at the hospital, I was labeled special needs and hard to place. They said, I'll never be able to walk, never be able to talk my entire life, because my mother just walked away and left me at the hospital. So I was just a ward of the state. So they labeled me. And then one time this doctor came over to when I was adopted at the age of 4 and said, you know what? She's not walking. She's not talking. You know what? Hold her, hug her, and love her. Give her
Oh,
love. So this 80-year-old woman loved me. She was in her 80s, and she said, I'll take that responsibility. And she loved me. And I never shut up, Lauren. So anyway, but the thing is, I needed love. So when people label our young people as, oh, they're homeless, they're this, they're that, no, I think love heals. And that's what everybody in my money camp will tell you. I always tell them, love means let obstacles vanish effortlessly. And we have to get over these obstacles. But the only way we're going to do it is love. And it's not that, we love we love our clients. But of course, everybody says, okay, how many assets under management do you have? My thing is, how many young people? Those are my assets under management. Those are the greatest assets I could ever have in my entire life. And they're under my management, and they're bigger than the assets that I have where I work. And that's what really matters.
oh my
So
gosh. So
anyway, Lauren, I'm getting emotional.
no, I know. I can feel it on this side too. It's such a beautiful story, and I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be able to hear it, despite geography distance or anything like that. I mean, you can feel the impact of what you've done, and also just how it's come together and touched so many people's lives, and also just like the legacy of that. I mean, it's not just seeds that were planted, yesterday or a year ago, but years ago, and all that time and effort and cultivating to where it is today to these kinds of stories is just it's amazing. And I mean, I'm sure so many people look to you and are so thankful for.
I'm old now. I feel
Yeah.
like, oh my God, all these kids. It's amazing. So
Yeah.
I
It's
love it. I
so
would change, yeah, anything at all.
it's absolutely beautiful what you've been able to do. And I'm like I said, grateful to hear it, firsthand. So is there we'll wrap up too. And I know I want to make sure to include resources and those that want to get involved, but are there any other thoughts that you would share to anyone that wants to be able to get involved or be able to give back to our youth or our community, and like just first steps of where would you start, because it can be an undertaking and then also cultivating all that resources and energy. But what would be advice to someone that you would say who wants to get involved?
Try your local junior achievement. I think junior achievement, we partner with junior achievement also, and they have a stock market contest for the kids. And of course, my children always win. My young investors do all the time, the stock market. But we just get involved with locally, even if you just mentor one person. And I'll encourage everyone in the financial service industry, the lending business, the banking business, whatever, bank on our youth. Lend them your time, invest in them, no matter what job title you have. I just think we're more than our job title. Our job title is a servant leader. If we made it to the C-suite, that means we need to have compassion and caring in that C-suite. We need more of that. So if you made it to that suite, it's time to bring others in that suite with you and have them, give them a seat at the table. So, and then don't look, we should, only time we look down on somebody is when we're helping somebody up. That's the only time. And I think we just can't look down on others. That is just my biggest thing. I just want us, I think it will make the world a better place. In the financial service industry, it's the center of our world, but we can bring so much change in this industry. And that's what we're doing this year. We're doing the sport of investing. So I'm adding sports into it. So this year we're doing financial football, everything, ballers and basketball. We're doing it all.
Oh my
So
gosh, so
yes.
amazing. I know. And like you were saying earlier that you're going to send that elevator back down again, right? To bring people up. So
Yes.
just appreciate all the work that you've done. Appreciate you sharing your story. And it's so impressive. Yeah, like I said, I've got goosebumps. So it's really
And
beautiful.
I have tears. I'm like, oh my God, I talk about my babies.
Oh,
If I could, I don't have enough time to talk about all the stories, but they're more than amazing. All my young investors. So I just want them to have. I want to leave the door open for them and send that elevator back down. So thank you, Lauren, for this opportunity, and thank you for everything that you're doing. We all need you on our board of directors. Is what we
oh.
need. Is a Lauren. Thank
We all
you.
need each other. Like you said, it takes a village. And thank you again for all the work that you're doing. So, and we'll include
Thank
details as
you.
well. Great.